Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley, Gorilla Girl filmmaker, lunar goddess, and cinephile.
And I'm your co-host John Thomas, ghost hunter, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and fellow dimensional travelers? In today's episode, we'll be discussing astral projection and mental manifestation. What exactly is astral projection? Can we really travel to other places or even other dimensions? How does one practice mental manifestation? Join us as we discuss these topics with two lovely returning guests.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more.
I almost forgot what I was doing.
You're bringing us back in.
I am bringing us back in. All right, welcome back, everybody. It's like Ashley said, we have two very lovely returning guests. We have Callea and we have Luana. Welcome back, ladies. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you back on the show. Having you on during season 1. So for some of our new listeners, both Callie and Lou came on different episodes for season 1 and talked about different topics. But I feel like I learned so much from the both of you on just listening to myself more and being aware of the universal messages, but also trusting myself and my intuition. So I'm really excited to have you back on.
Thank you. It's exciting being on the show with you guys.
So let's go ahead and just get right into it. Let's get started with astral projection. I'm not sure if either one of you are very familiar with it or if you practice it. I'm not sure. Is it something you can practice? I have so many questions. So let's just jump right in.
Who wants to start?
I mean, I know that I read up on it like a long time ago when I was, studying witchcraft and all that stuff. And it sounded really difficult to do, so practicing it I never really tried, and kind of bummed about it because it seems really cool and I would love to try it.
Yeah, I think my experiences with it, I mean, I haven't actually, I wouldn't say that I've officially astral projected, but I've always been very curious about the topic since I was a kid, and I used to read a lot about it. And I actually tried it growing up, just with some of the books I had that I read up on. But, you hear astral projection, out-of-body experience. There's all different kinds of terms, I think, that get kind of, under the same umbrella or very close. Remote viewing is another one that I think sometimes kind of gets lumped into a very similar category. So I've interviewed people that have astral projected, but I never have myself.
I think, since we're getting started talking about it, I think the important thing to talk about before we really get into it much is, a lot of people think that astral projection and lucid dreaming are the same thing. So I think it's important to differentiate the two so that people know that there is absolutely a difference, that astral projection is an actual out-of-body experience. It's something that you often do intentionally. Lucid dreaming, however, is just the awareness that you're dreaming, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes the ability to actually control your dreams. So those are two completely different things. In astral projection, you actually leave the physical plane and you project yourself somewhere else. In lucid dreaming, you're still here on the physical plane, you're sleeping, you're just aware of the fact that you're dreaming. So I think it's important to know that they're not interchangeable and they are, in fact, two different things.
Yeah, I like that. I completely agree. And I think that's where one of my first questions comes in. And I'm not sure. I know, Luana, you said you've interviewed people with who have astral projected. So for me, I guess my first question is, can astral projection be done, or is it done while one is awake, versus lucid dreaming where you're still within your body, but you're asleep? Or is there are there different levels to astral projection? Can it be done awake, asleep? Does it matter? Is it both?
It can be done whether you're awake or you're asleep. Astral projection can be done when you're asleep, in which case you do need to also be lucid dreaming. So that is one step in astral projection when you're asleep. But when you're awake, you do need to be in a deep meditative state. So you would either be using meditation, like a guided meditation, or some form of hypnosis. So in that case, you're still awake. So.
Okay, so for me, I've had an experience where I was lucid dreaming, but I felt like I was pulled into somebody else's dream. When I talked to my friend about it the next day, they had explained to me that and I didn't tell them about what I dreamt. They had been visiting this supposed haunted place up in Oregon with their brothers, and they were doing like little paranormal investigation type processes, and they were telling me what they had gone through that entire evening because they were very excited to share their stories. And I realized that what I had dreamt directly correlated with what they had experienced that evening. It had thrown me off because I was just like, well, wait a minute, can you describe the place? And what they were describing was different than the place that I had dreamt. But then when I described what I had dreamt, they said, well, hold on a minute. The original location had burned down and had been rebuilt to be modern and a touristy place, but the original location looked different. So they sent me pictures of the original location, which also had a completely different name, and it slips my mind the name of it. And when I saw the original pictures, I was like, oh my word, that's what I dreamt. Like, that's where I was, and everything that I was seeing was what they had gone through, but I was with them. And so I guess for me, after hearing you say that it can be done while lucid dreaming, I call it, like, when something like that happens with me, I call it going like walkabout dreaming. But like, I don't have a word for it. So I just like give words to it. But that makes me wonder, did I do something different? Is that not necessarily like a walkabout weird? That's weird. I dreamt the same thing you went through. Is that more like an astral projection type thing? I don't know.
Well, keep in mind what I first said when we talked about the definitions between the two. Lucid dreaming is just an awareness that you're dreaming. That's all it is. There's nothing more to it. It's just an awareness that you're dreaming. And astral projection is where you actually can go into different times, places, and dimensions. And you had obviously gone into a different time, right? Because you were seeing the place in a whole different way than what it was. You had gone to a place other than where your physical body was, right? And you probably were also in a bit of another dimension. So that is exactly the definition of an astral projection.
Sweet.
So you want to call it a walkabout dreaming because you're trying to avoid the fact that you're really just astral projecting. So, just admit it.
Sweet. That's very exciting and terrifying.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ashley doesn't like stuff like that too much.
It makes me a little uncomfortable because it challenges my comfort zones and what I try to apply to things. I think when we're afraid of things, we try to apply logic and to make it less scary or less, like, I think you use it, Callie, less woo-woo. Yeah, and so I guess I do avoid using certain words, but that was one that always sticks out with me with something that had occurred with dreams, only because when somebody else validates it without them realizing they're validating it, like, I didn't tell them what I dreamt. And it's just like, I had this crazy dream and they tell me about what they went through the entire evening. It's like, oh my gosh, like, filmmaker brain is like, shot for shot, that's what I dreamt. That's crazy. So, yeah, that was interesting. And John just shakes his head.
I would love to experience something like that. So one of these days, practice.
So, Callie, you mentioned, I didn't even think about like the expansiveness of the definition, because I guess it's really hard to define something that is so out of our realm of what we know. But you had mentioned astral projection can take place in different times. I didn't even think of that. Like, could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
If you think about it, we are the ones here on this earthly plane that puts time into a pattern so that our human brains can understand it. But time really is not linear. All different things, the past is happening now, the future is happening now, the present is happening now. It's all happening at the same time, and we are free, if we know how, to jump between the different times. And so absolutely, when you're astrally projecting, because you leave the bounds of your physical body. You know, what keeps us anchored here in this time, in this place, and having time being linear is the fact that we do actually occupy human bodies. And so when we get outside of those human bodies, either by meditating or being hypnotized or by deep sleep, we are able to send ourselves really anywhere that we please, the more that we practice it. So,
What exactly is traveling?
well, it's where your astral body takes a trip, basically. Your physical body stays put, but your astral body, which is also known as your soul, you know, if you don't want to use such a woo-woo term, let's just call it soul. Your soul takes a journey.
Okay, so our soul or our astral body is traveling on and it's carrying some part of our consciousness, right? Something that identifies as us, who we are in our present memories and moments in time, I assume. How does that know to return back to that physical body? Like, and I know I'm asking a lot of questions that like we don't know necessarily answers to, but maybe you guys have a little bit more insight to it. Is how does that consciousness, once it is separated and departed from our physical body, how does it then know to reattach to that specific physical body?
Well, some believe that there's what's called the silver thread, and the silver thread is what connects you to your soul. And so it's as expansive as you want it to be. That thread is not limited by any means, but it just keeps you connected to your physical body. And so the silver thread is what your soul would use to find its way back to you.
Oh, neat. So it's like this metaphysical tether that keeps us connected.
Yeah, but you know, tether, I get tether because that sort of gives you a reference point, but it also doesn't tether you because to me, a tether limits you, and your soul has no limits, really. It's more of just a connection. Do you know what the difference of what I'm talking about? Like why I don't like calling it a tether so much? Because to me, that means you're limited, and once you reach the end of that tether, then you can't go any further. And that's, yeah. So it's more of just a connection.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you have more than one silver thread?
I would imagine that you can because, again, your soul is limitless, right? The universe is limitless. Why would you have to be limited to one silver thread when it has to do with your soul?
Yeah, that makes sense. Such heavy topics. I love it. Like my mind tries to I feel like it's just groping and reaching to understand, and it's a lot, but I love it. I feel like, do you ever just talk about things and you know in that moment that like this is right, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to be learning more about, this is what my brain and mind and body and soul and everything else are needing to absorb? I don't know if that makes sense. I talk a lot. So Lou, what do you have in terms of like when we're discussing astral projection? Is there anything that fascinates you or any kind of story that just really sticks out for you when you hear about that?
I've kind of read up on the subject a lot. Like I said, I haven't had any personal experiences, but just from, kind of researching it and then interviewing different people, I think what's interesting is to how, when we talk about astral projection being kind of like this intentional practice that we can do and get better at. I think there's also like another side of it that sometimes forces people to have those out of body experiences. And you hear that like with like near death experience. Sometimes people will say that they, float above their body, they see their body. And so I kind of I'm kind of fascinated in the differences in each. And one seems to be more intentional practice, one seems to be non-intentional but happens, and so there I have a lot of questions about it. I mean, I think it's fascinating to understand. And I think the more that we can start researching, I mean, in general, just like the non-physical, because we focus so much on physical matter in our world. And, it's, I think anybody who's done just paranormal research in general, we end up in this category of we're trying to do scientific research, and it's not so easy when you get to the non-physical, to document things. And I think that that's really where we have to be better about acknowledging that we are more nothing than something.
Well, and I think just like anything else, there's this concept of astral projection, or this point Z, right? That I think like we've all said at some point we attempted it and we've tried to, explore it and do it. And it's just like haven't succeeded, not on purpose anyways. And so I think when we have point Z, which in this case is astral projection, there's different routes to it. I think whether it be, like you said, forced, unforced, but also even like different avenues of awareness. Once we learn to shift our awareness, whether it be through the guided meditation, I don't know why it just comes to the forefront of my mind. It just kind of jumps out there. Is I think about like the Earth's harmonics. And like most individuals have not experienced the Earth's harmonics, what that feels like, what that maybe sounds like, because some people feel it versus hear it. It's just the Earth's vibrations and how we as little, energy tuning forks receive that and translate that. And so when it comes to astral projection, I oftentimes wonder, because a lot of people, it seems like you have to be in a deeply meditative process to get there, whether it be through deeply meditative, like asleep, or deeply meditative, just guided meditation. So to get there, I do wonder if that somehow comes into play with the harmonics, the Earth's vibrations in some way, being able to vibrate on that frequency so that you can shift out of, the physical body into what already is vibrating out there, and kind of riding those vibrations to wherever it is you're going, whether it be time folds of different times or folds of different dimensions or up the street. I don't know, like wherever we go to.
Well, as Luana was saying, everything is energy. We're all made up of energy, and science has proven that energy resonates with like energy. It can't exist with unlike energy. And so absolutely it would have to do with something. It would have to have something to do with the Earth's harmonics, because it has to be what you're resonating with. And I would think to translate, like if you were to travel to another dimension, you're going to have to resonate with that dimension's harmonics. So you would then no longer really be resonating with Earth's harmonics. You would be resonating with this other dimension's harmonics. And I think that's why it's important to be in a meditative or a sleep state, because of the fact that, just like what you're talking about tonight, Ashley, you talk about how your mind is trying to wrap itself around all of this, right?
Yeah.
Well, that in the end, that ends up hurting you, because it's not something that your mind can wrap itself around. It's not a conscious thing that you have inside your mind. It's a feeling. So, yeah, it absolutely has to do with Earth's harmonics and other dimensions' harmonics as well.
There you go, Callie, always challenging me. I did get told recently I need to think less and feel more. So there we go.
That's one of the hardest things, though. We all want it to make sense to us. But when you let go of it having to make sense to you, that's when everything starts to open up for you and gets a lot more exciting. So, like it says on my wrist, let go. Come on, Ashley, you can do it.
I know. I have the hardest time letting go. I have to. My kids and I do this silly thing where on the double digits of the clock, whether it be 11:11 or whatever it is, they do wishes. They make a wish, and so they'll be like, "Did you make your wish, Mama?" And I'm like, "I made my wish." So today I looked at my clock and it was 11:11, and I'm like, "Okay, guys, make your wish." And they're like, "Don't forget to make yours." And I was like, "Okay." And I like the first thing in my mind was, I wish to be able to let go.
Be careful what you wish for.
That was the second thing that came to my mind, that I have to be very careful what I'm asking for. So I'm already there with you. I'm just like, be cautious what you're asking. Be very specific. It's like a genie. You need to be very careful what you're asking.
I've learned that the hard way too. It's like you got to be very specific sometimes.
I know. On my wish, I was like, hold on. We're going to pause that. I'm going to think about what I want to like. I'll come back on that one. I'll come back to it.
I hate to tell you, you've already put it out to the universe. It's too late.
Doing good.
Deal with it.
Well, universe, I'm sure if something happens, it was a lesson I was supposed to learn.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about letting go and the mind. So let's segue in. Let's go ahead and transfer over to mental manifestation, because I think both of those things go very much hand in hand. I mean, people hear astral projection and mental manifestation. It's like, how do those go together? But to me, I think they go together a lot. It's, at least for me, being able to focus your mind, and what that focus is leads towards whatever outcome it is. But to your point, we have to be very careful of our outcomes, and also I think letting go of expectations of outcomes. So I learned so much. So mental manifestation. This is way out of my realm, but I know this is both of your alleys. So what would you like to share about mental manifestation?
Go ahead, Luana. You take this one.
I might have to think on that one a little bit more.
Well, you want to talk a little bit about the how they're related, astral projection and mental manifestation. And if you think about it, when you astrally project, you want to be careful that you are projecting yourself into a, say, good situation. So you want to set your intentions properly before you get started. Just like when you begin to manifest things in your life, you absolutely need to set your intentions, sit down, think about what you want. But then when you make a plan, don't be attached to the outcome.
So focus with non-attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Be attached to the non-attachment, okay?
Normally, me a year ago would have been like, what? But me a year later, after talking to you lovely individuals and learning more about like yogic principles, it's like that actually makes more sense to me now. It's amazing how all of these philosophies just intertwine and flow together.
And all of a sudden it sounds right. And it's like, I've heard this before. I've experienced this before. And even though it doesn't necessarily fall into the places it's supposed to in your rational brain, it actually does make sense. And that's when you have finally begun the process of letting go, because you're letting go of the need for it to fall into a specific, say, pattern in your brain. You're allowing it to feel right as opposed to, making sense in your brain.
I think mental manifestation, I mean, if we just break it down to its basic, not that it's a basic concept, but just breaking it down to the bare bone, it's focusing your mind and manifesting, or like the laws of attraction, manifesting what it is that you are focusing on, or taking it even a step further, even if we aren't mentally consciously focusing on something, the vibrations that we are setting ourselves to, putting that out into the universe and calling that back into ourselves. So being very aware of what level are we vibrating on, and what could that potentially bring back? Because it is a like versus like. Even if it's not the same, for example, personality, that same vibrational counterpart is potentially going to call back to us. Like off on a little tangent, I think we see that with like codependencies. It's not the same personality type, but they complement each other on that vibrational level. So it does, I think, pull that in. So where was I going with that? Well, let me tell you. I think that gets applied a lot when we look at other topics too, like the mental manifestation, vibrational energies. When we go to, like, let's say, paranormal sites or high energy sites where there may be supernatural activity, if we go in vibrating at a certain frequency or level, there may be a whole lot of ranges of vibrational energies at that location. But the one we're vibrating at, I think that's what we're going to call to us. I don't know. Is that what you've experienced?
I think that the more I'm aware of vibration and how we all vibrate, our energy, I definitely feel like there's more examples that like show up in your life, and you can like really look around the things that are happening in your life sometimes, even just down to like I've tried to do like some vibration cleanup, and sometimes if I'm really low vibrationally, even when I connect with people, sometimes I'm connecting with lower vibrations. And I think that, when you talk about like paranormal research, like when I would be investigating, sometimes, it was really important to me when I formed the team that energy was and vibration was really important to me. And John, I've had this conversation with you before because it's something that I had experienced where if you're not careful, and it's kind of like Callie talked about intention, making sure that you set your intentions. But I definitely had experiences with individuals sometimes that were really, really negative or really vibrationally low. And I do feel like you attract more of that, when you're investigating sites. And so I do feel like, the more that I'm an adult and the more that I've studied energy and vibration, I definitely think you can look around your environment and see what am I vibrating at? And it's kind of a good indication. It kind of keeps me in check, and it's one of the things talk about, not being attached to the outcome. That's something I've had to learn in the last couple of years, which is a personal journey of mine, is just vibrationally things happen. And sometimes it takes you really low. And I finally am getting that letting go piece a lot more now than I used to be able to. It's really important.
And I think situations or experiences that occur aren't necessarily a positive or negative. I don't think they necessarily have a vibration associated to them. I think we project sometimes our vibration onto them as like a reactivity. And so situations in life just are, right? Experiences that we encounter just are. And we place value judgments on them based on our experiences and how we internalize them. And that's not to say that as a whole, there are certain experiences that everyone we can agree on, that's not a good vibration. But in general, they just are. And I think that's where the non-attachment comes in, is coming across these situations and acknowledging that they may not be the most ideal for where we want to be vibrationally, but we can choose how we allow our vibration to be impacted by it. So like some people simplify it and say, you choose your feelings. You choose how you allow something to affect your feelings. And it's like, wow, that's an oversimplification, because some things really are just frustrating and overwhelming, and so many different things can occur. But I also think with that comes the how long we allow ourselves to stay attached to those feelings and vibrations. Kind of like you said, how low does it take us and how long do we stay in that low vibration?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting to the next best place. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think the longer we stay in those vibrations, the more we do leave ourselves open to then more things within that vibrational level of occurring or drawing in people on that vibrational level to us. So it's kind of like a snowball of more and more of that vibration that we may not want.
And kind of going on that, and I remember this from when Callie was doing the classes and we were taking those, hey, I'm having a bad day until now, and that stops it right then and there. And I've tried to get that, especially at work with everybody, because everybody's so damn negative all the time. I'm like, guys, it's really not a bad day. Just stop. If you say that, it's going to be, if you say right now that, I'm not having a bad day anymore, I'm having a good day, everything's fine, it's going to help, and it's going to make everything decent, and it actually helps me out a lot. So I learned something.
That was really good advice, and that wasn't even my advice. Give credit where credit's due. That came from my friend Cynthia.
Right, exactly.
But it was awesome advice, But, one other thing, though, to keep in mind is sometimes it's okay to be having a bad day. We all want to be in this high vibration all the time, but we need balance in our lives. We're human beings. We're here to have human experiences. You can't be happy if you're not sad, because you don't know the difference between the two, right? So sometimes it's okay to just have a bad day. and to vibrate at that low frequency, because you sort of rest when you're at that low frequency. It's kind of like, when your car is idling as opposed to going 80 miles an hour down the highway. When it's idling, it's sort of a low home, frequency. When you're going 80 miles an hour, that's a lot more fun, it's a lot more enjoyable, and you get places a lot faster. But you need that idle time too. So I think it's important that people remember it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to be mad, and it's okay to be sad. Go through those, but don't hold on to them. Choose how long, like you were saying, Ashley, choose how long you stay in it. That's important.
I would agree with that. I think it's, the difference between unpacking and kind of living there. And then I think the other important aspect is, just being self-aware too, because that was really like my realization of like just going through medical thing after medical thing. Like some days I just had to cry it out and start fresh the next day and just say, okay, I'm going to get on track the next day. And I realistically may not be able to go from the bottom of where I'm vibrationally sitting with where I am to the very top, but I can get to maybe the next step or the next place up from that. And so it is about, making sure that we have these real experiences, and it's okay. Just, I think the other important thing that I've had to learn through the years too is how much, what are we focused on, because I think especially right now, I just feel like a lot of chaos in the world right now. And I feel like I have to be careful too of like how much I just drown myself in news and media and, even social media comments and things like that, because it has an impact on my thoughts and it drives an emotion. And, so I think there's a balance. You just have to be self-aware. And when you feel like you're not where you want to be, kind of take steps to get to the next best place.
I agree. And did you find that, when you had those days where you just let yourself cry it out, did you find that you felt better faster because you let yourself have that down day as opposed to
Yes.
fighting against it?
Yeah, I think that like years ago, I would try to just, I think I almost beat myself up when I'd have bad days. Like I'm not, I can't be vibrationally low for very long. I don't want what comes with this if I'm there for too long. And I almost got to the point where it was just like, I don't want to have bad times, and I don't want to feel negative emotions. And the more that I let go of that and just said, you know what, the best I can do today is just to start again tomorrow and just be where I am right now and just, understand where I am right now. I think that's helped me get to the next best place quicker than not just ignoring it, because once you just try to ignore it and just pretend, and that's what I was going to say too, is sometimes if you try to tell yourself like I'm better than I am really, and you're not acknowledging that, it's all about belief, in my opinion. Your beliefs drive that. And if I don't really feel, but I'm just telling myself like I'm going to feel better, or I feel good, and I don't, then I'm just kind of starting over the next day, and I'm still carrying that probably into the next day. So,
Like they always say, what you resist persists.
yes.
And so don't resist it. If you're having a bad day, just have a bad day and get through it and experience it. Sometimes the only way to get through something is to go through it. So
I think a lot of what drives our bad days too is the actual energy of refusing to acknowledge the low vibrations as they happen. I think that when something angers us or makes us feel frustrated or anxious, like Lou said, we're like, okay, I gotta plug through, I gotta keep going, I gotta truck through it. And we don't realize that it's still having that shift in our vibration. It's still shifting us. And then we're carrying that within us. And so we continue to carry it as it builds. And for me, it feels like almost like a rock in my chest. And at first it starts as like a little pebble, but then it becomes so enormous that it's almost like I'm holding my breath and I can't breathe. And it's all of this energy that I'm absorbing that I'm just not acknowledging. Like, yes, that makes me anxious. Yes, that angered me. Yes, that makes me sad. And it's even more difficult when it's like, I don't know why I feel that way. Like there's not some incident I can attribute it to. So then it's like, just swallow it down and keep on going and keep on being tough and keep on being all these things that we think we need to be. And I think, like you said, Callie, the moment we let ourselves cry it out, we let go of that energy and that vibration and just push it back out into the earth to absorb for us. We feel phenomenally better. It's like you said, it's a reset. It's a cleansing. And it's just like, holy moly, I should have let myself cry a week ago. I should have let myself go, and curses to, the sky 2 days ago, because I feel so much better just getting that out.
Which is just more reason for like, make sure, because this is something that I think my boys kind of felt like they're not supposed to cry. Maybe like society kind of gave that impression. And I just remember telling my son about a year ago when he was going through some stuff, I'm like, just cry. It's okay to cry. Like, you need to experience emotions. And so I like to say that whenever possible, like, just I hope people, teach your kids, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it's okay to cry. It's a human response that we need to experience. It's okay.
I agree. I cry like a baby sometimes, and I'm okay with that. So.
Well, and Ashley, I wanted to highlight something that I don't know if you even heard yourself say, because you were talking about how you're trying to have the feelings and have the experiences that you think you're supposed to have, instead of feeling what you're feeling. Well, does that sound familiar to you at all? Because it's not about what is supposed to make sense in your brain. It's not about what you're thinking. It's about what you're feeling. You feel better when you feel, instead of trying to do what you think in this human brain. So I found that interesting that you were talking about it, and you're talking about, doing these things that you think you're supposed to do. Well, there you go. There's another reason to let go of thinking, because you feel better when you feel.
And I think too, there I go thinking. I think too, feeling is thinking, but it's automatic thinking. It's intuition. It's a different space of thinking. And I know that sounds weird, but it's just like we're thinking with a different part of us. It's an intuition that is guided by who knows what, like this cosmic consciousness or the past experiences of life. I don't know, but I think it is a form of thinking to allow ourselves to feel, process, absorb, and then continue on. It's just taking it out of our physical consciousness and into the space where I guess it actually should be this whole time, which is our intuition and our energetic consciousness, if that's a thing.
It is, and that's exactly where our astral body resides, by the way. And so astral projection, going back to that, can help you with mental manifestation, and can help you with feeling better, and it can help you with all of this stuff that we're talking about now, because that's where your intuition resides, is in your astral body. It's not in your physical body, it's in your soul.
I think pop culture had a lot to do with like the, increased attention on astral projection and mental manifestation and things like that. Because I know when I was a kid, at least, there was a lot of sci-fi television shows that had to do with astral projection. And then there were books and articles that popped up that you shouldn't practice it alone because you could get stuck outside of your body. And when you mentioned the silver thread and that physical attachment to our body, I wonder, is it really dangerous to practice it alone? Is that something that you can just get stuck outside of your body or in another dimension or another world?
Okay, well, let's go to mental manifestation, and let's go to setting your intentions. Is it dangerous? I don't know. Is that the intention that you set when you got started for it to be dangerous? Or did you set an intention that you're going to have a good experience, you're going to learn the things that you want to learn, you're going to return to your body, and everything's going to be fine? What's the intention that you set? Because that's what you're going to go out to the universe and pull back with you. But I really don't think that it's dangerous. And the reason I don't think it's dangerous is because our soul, our higher self, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is taking care of us on a regular basis. No matter how much we try to ignore it, it's taking care of us. And so I believe whether we're in our physical body or our astral body, our soul still has our back.
I was just going to say something too with the research that I was kind of doing on astral projection and stuff too. Sometimes like when people would have experiences and they would start to get afraid, or they would have fear, sometimes it kind of reeled them back in. So I don't know if that's also what happens. I'm only going off of what I was researching, but that was something else that, as people started kind of panicking, or, maybe weren't as comfortable. Some people that are using it as like more of a spiritual practice, like I said, I think that's kind of where you're curious maybe. But if it happened, like maybe you didn't plan on something, but it happened like out of body experience with near death experience, like is kind of where I'm going. Sometimes the mere act of having that fear, knee-jerk reaction kind of puts you back into maybe your physical body. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's kind of how I interpreted it.
I can speak to that personally for actually two different reasons. Having had something, it wasn't your traditional near-death experience. It actually happened to me a few days after having an accident. And then I had an experience where I was intentionally beginning to travel, and it was the first time that I had ever done it. And I felt myself starting to leave my body, and I knew I was leaving my body, and then all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, I'm leaving my body. And it just literally, like you're talking about, it sucked me right back into my body. So yeah, absolutely, fear can keep you from being able to do it because it's not a fear-based experience. It's about opening your mind and experiencing all that the universe has to offer. So yeah, fear definitely has an effect. I know that for sure.
As you were mentioning the fear thing, something that kind of just jumps out at me is I think of the chakras as a visualization, but I know that everything below like the heart chakra is considered before a meditative state. So the sacral chakra and like the root chakras are below it. And then interesting enough, our heart chakra is like the transition chakra, right? Into a higher vibration and the meditative state of connecting to like our truth and our cosmic conscious or collective consciousness. So I think about fear and where fear exists, and that's very much in the ego. That's very much below the heart chakra. And so I wonder if as we transcend into that meditative state of deep focus and mental manifestation to leave our bodies and we go into that collective consciousness, perhaps the collective consciousness is exactly where everything else folds into time, dimension, other places. It's just all one ever folding blanket or flower. I wonder if that fear or excitement of, holy shit, I'm leaving my body, is what roots us to that physical body because it's back below the meditative state. And so that's what yanks it back. So any of those feelings that are not, I don't know another word to use, but like ethereal, meditative would yank us back in, whether it's excitement, fear, anxiety, or any of those very monkey brain, or what do they call it? The serpent brain based emotions that connect us maybe to that physical body. There I go. I'm thinking too much, but I feel like I'm on the path.
That, you said it perfectly. I mean, our physical body is the one that has the ego. Our astral body or our soul has no ego. And so the ego is absolutely what roots us in fear and keeps us from doing a lot of things, including astral projection. But it keeps us from experiencing a lot of amazing things. And it's absolutely the ego. So you are right on, Ashley.
Yay! Yeah, I think, gosh, there's so much. And I know John's amazing and takes all of these notes for me to look at. Like, I do my own research, but he also gets some really interesting research together. And I know some of the stuff he got together on mental manifestation, it was interesting because I know the basic definition, manifestation is bringing something tangible into your life through attraction and focus or belief. But one thing I didn't realize is it says 6 signs. There are 6 signs that manifestation is close. And one of them was repeating numbers, 111, 222, 555. And I think about times in my life where I've seen repeated numbers and not paid attention. Like I pay attention enough to know, wow, I'm seeing a lot of that. That's different, but not paying attention to what's actually happening in that moment. So I thought that was interesting. Is that something that you have experienced during, your own manifestation? And Luana, you've talked about previously like universal messages. Have you seen that accompanied with repeating numbers or images or something like that?
I mean, it's funny, like lately I've been seeing a lot of the repetitive numbers, so I guess I can keep you tuned in as to whether I'm on the brink of manifesting something. But I definitely think that, again, it goes back to our belief system, how I ask for messages and signs to show up in my life. I kind of set that intention of what I will see and what I will recognize as a message or as a sign. So I think that that's also, I think, personally, my opinion is it can vary on different individuals. I don't know that it works. If there's one kind of rule that works with repetitive numbers, I think a lot of people experience it. And I think it's a way that they can recognize that kind of information. I don't know that it works for everybody, but I tend to like try to set that intention of how I want to see things show up. So
Oh, that makes sense. That makes complete sense.
Well, I think it's important for each person what makes you recognize the signs. So, for some people it's because they saw a feather on the ground. For some people it's that they saw a dime, that appeared out of nowhere. For other people it's repeating numbers. So, like you said, I don't think that there's one specific thing that works for everybody. It's really, the key is, it's not the repeating numbers. The key is making you pay attention and having you connect those two dots. Oh, I'm seeing repeating numbers again. And when I see repeating numbers, I'm getting a sign, because you will, after a while, if you pay attention, you'll start to recognize that pattern. That's just the universe's way of getting you to pay attention. It might send me a feather and it might send Luana a dime. You know what I mean? So it's not about what the actual sign is. It's about whether or not that triggers us to think about it.
That makes sense. And that goes back to your setting intentions, right? So like, I think Luana, like you mentioned, if you're asking for signs, specifying what type of signs you receive.
yeah, I think I've learned to do that more through the years is when I want to see, like, for example, as I'm working on my vibration and I try to work on it a lot, I try to ask for intuitive messages and things that I will recognize, because I want to see things showing up in my life to give me guidance, to keep me on track. It's again, I think what I heard Callie saying, like the awareness of that symbol that means something to me. So like in the past, it was butterflies for me, and that they had significant meaning. And so I've tried to set that intention of like, because one of my intuitive friends, she does a lot of readings, and she said, the way she gets information is she's had to establish that with, like, show me if somebody is having health issues, what can I expect to see as I'm doing readings for them. And so she's established that sign, so that when that sign shows up, she understands it's health related. And so I think that that's true with my experience of when I want to know messages and I want something to show up, give me what I'll recognize. So pennies, butterflies, and then the way that messages shows up to me is also very like set in my intention and what I've communicated. So I think everybody can work differently and what works for them, but that's what works for me.
So one of the signs of manifestation, I don't know who wrote this article, but I think it's interesting. There are 6 signs. One of the signs is you're experiencing more synchronicities or meaningful coincidences. And so to me, I wonder, are the synchronicities always there? And we're just paying attention a little more when we're focusing on mental manifestation? Or is that a vibrational attraction that starts to occur because we are becoming more intentional with our manifestations, or at least our mental focus?
I think it's both, really. I think the serendipities are always there, but whether or not we're attracting those serendipities to ourselves is about our mental manifestation. So it's a combination of the two. They're always out there for us to grab and bring to ourselves, but we don't always choose to do that. So.
And I would agree with that too. I think there are signs and information everywhere that we can tune into, and sometimes we just don't. And I feel like there's been examples in my life where it's like, okay, I didn't get it in one way, and they're like, hello, here's something else for you, and here's something else. And sometimes you discount it, or you try to like logic your way out of seeing that sign, which I've done before too. But I also feel like when you're wanting it and asking it, you're attracting more of it. So like those are the times that I have people like out of the blue, like, oh, I think that whatever you just said to me was a message that was intended for me. And like these little things that happen that I look back and I go, wow, that was really cool. And that was supposed to happen. Or things that I would never, that are very out of place that just get my attention. So I think that you get more of that as you start attracting.
I like what you just said too about how like people mention, I think that message was for me. They find the synchronicity within you, because I think oftentimes we are so focused on absorbing the world from our perspective. Where are my messengers? Where are my messages? That we sometimes forget we also are messages, and we are also messengers. And so being willing to not only receive messages, but being willing to stay connected to those vibrations, not all the time, because I'm sure that can be energetically draining or depleting, but being willing to be those messengers as well and give out into the universe as much as we receive.
I think that the weirdest thing for me is I'm a dream interpreter. I interpret people's dreams. And when I do it, I do a really deep dive. Like I take the dream and I break it into a million different pieces and I interpret all of the different pieces. And then when I'm finished with that, I do a write-up for them. So I do all of my dream interpretations by writing. And when I do that, when I start writing, I don't remember what I'm writing. I have to go back and reread it because it's not me writing it. It's coming from somewhere else and it's coming through my fingers. And the weirdest thing is when I go back to read it, every single time it's exactly the message that I needed at that moment. And it's so weird. By allowing myself to be the messenger for other people, it is allowing myself to receive the messages. And so absolutely you need to be willing to give and to receive both. It's equally as important.
I feel like it would be terrifying to try and analyze my dreams. So
That's what everybody says until I do a dream interpretation for them and they're like, oh, wow, that didn't mean at all what I thought.
So, Luana, is there anything else you want to share on astral projection or energetic vibrations? Because I feel like this is more the mental manifestation. This is really about energetic vibrations that we put out into the world.
No, I just think I think the main thing, and I think I've alluded to this already, but I think the main thing that I would like people to consider when they think about like astral projection and just a lot of the different topics that we've, kind of mentioned in this episode is just I think there's a lot that has to do with energy that I think people could be more aware of. And I think it's easier for some cultures to kind of, adopt the mindset of energy is important. And I think our culture sometimes doesn't always like necessarily embrace those concepts. But I think that it's something that as we could kind of let go of some of our preconceived ideas, I think this also has to do with just scientific research. I think we kind of alluded to the idea of you can't wrap your head around everything, right? Not everything can be proven. And I think that's just been my biggest, I don't know, like learning throughout my adult years is that there's so many different topics that I don't know that we'll ever be able to explain everything about it, and I look at like quantum physics and just how much scientists have even tried to wrap their heads around what's happening in that study. And I think it's fascinating to learn just like little nuggets of information that could really help us with more of the non-physical areas in science. So I don't know, just I would just say keep an open mind to energy.
And I know with the new age becoming very trendy, like just the whole new age umbrella of topics, energy work is very much trending. It's very much popular right now. There is an inundation in the literary world and the self-help world and everything of books and literature and websites and podcasts and you name it. And there is a sense of ourselves we have been missing, that connection with our energetic bodies, our astral bodies. And so they're kind of leaning into these topics and grasping at anything and everything they can to consume. So I guess my question to both of you is, and I know it's a loaded question, where should people go? And it sounds like you're both on the same of go internal, like connect and trust with yourself. But where should they go? Because there are so many things out there written and discussed about this. And I almost feel like it's over information and over inundation. So it causes like this action paralysis where no work is actually being done on the self because it's just too much.
Well, what I have found when it comes to that is first ask for a sign, and a sign will arrive. Pay attention. But when that sign arrives, the path will become clear if you're paying attention. So you'll be led to this book. You'll see a Facebook meme. One of your friends will mention something. And all of these are stepping stones that are taking you to the place that you want to get to, because it's not important to focus on the how, like how do you get there? It's important to focus on the what. Okay, so set your intention for what is it that you want. Do you want to astrally travel? Do you want to get to know yourself better? What is it that you're working on right now? Do you want to let go? What is it that you want? Don't worry about the how, because the universe is going to take care of the how for you. And the universe has a lot bigger bag of tricks than you ever could imagine. So if you are trying to, in your brain, here we come back to your brain again, if you're trying to come up with the how in your brain, you're going to be so limited to how it can happen that it might even keep it from happening. So you worry about the what. You tell the universe what you want to do, and the universe has it from there. The right book will come to you. The right podcast will come to you. The right conversation will come to you. There is no other way. It's just how it works.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the other thing that I believe people can do to help get them on the right track too is just taking time to, I think that we get in this mode of we're always so busy. And, I know I fall into this trap myself. Like you're working, you have families, you have, all these different things that you're juggling. And I really feel like don't forget about yourself. Like don't forget about self-care. And when I say self-care, I mean just even things like quieting. I think people think meditation has to be like you're sitting in meditation for a couple hours a day or something like this. It doesn't have to be that complex, but just even taking time just to quiet things around you and to kind of tune in and ask yourself certain questions like, what is it that I would like to achieve? Where do I want to be in 5 years? What is important for me right now? Look at internally to know what is it that you're trying to understand more about, and then to just be able to take care of yourself and sometimes quiet things a little bit. I think the more that I've done that, the more that I've kind of tuned into maybe a little bit of meditation on a regular basis, more stuff comes to me and it opens up some more of my communication channels. And I know everybody will get information differently, but I think that it's important just to not forget to do those things. Kind of build them into your daily practices just as much as we're rushing around. Try to quiet some things and kind of consider what is it that you really want to know. And maybe the messages will come to you.
And I think for me, when it comes to manifestation, setting your mind, well, the what is it you want? I find for me, I encourage people to speak into the universe what it is you want, put that action, because I almost feel like the universe can only do so much for you or bring so much to your door. You have to be willing to open the door. And so for me, I think a lot of people assume, well, okay, that requires the how. And I don't think it takes that. I think sometimes it is something as simple and yet difficult as saying it out loud. This is what I want. This is what I would like to be capable of. Or, this is where I want to go. Just by saying it out loud, I think it rings your energy vibration in a different way. That does steer towards where it is you want to go. Everybody thinks there's one way to meditate, and it's like there's not. There's a meditative state, but we all kind of like mental manifestation, or I guess astral projection. There's so many different pathways there. There's not just one. So for me, I think my favorite way to get into that meditative state is actually through like moving meditation. Some people, moving would completely not work for them. They need to be still. They need to be in silence and darkness. And I cannot sit still and be like quiet with myself. That's just a very difficult space for me to be in. So,
or just even music, you know what I mean? Or just even taking a walk in nature. I think people forget how healing nature can be, and just getting outside and, just even going to a quiet place outside, or just, that's what I mean, is just like taking time for what it is that resonates with you, that will get you to that place. But I think sometimes as we talk about being so busy and not noticing or tuning into things, that's a common thing that I get wrapped up in, is like I'm on the go, I'm just busy, and you just don't take time to notice things. And so just being conscious of like, I need time to just kind of unwind, or just to have some quiet time for myself, whatever that looks like.
Absolutely.
And meditation can be as simple as just stopping and taking a few deep breaths and focusing only on the breath. Because, as Luana was saying, a lot of people think meditation means you have to sit down and you have to sit there for 2 hours and it has to be this, this big production. And it doesn't. Because if you think about it, when you meditate, your purpose is really to reach infinity, right? Because you're trying to get to the universe. If you reach infinity with your meditation, what is the difference between 2 minutes and 2 hours? There is no difference when you're talking about infinity. And so meditation can be as simple as just stop, quiet yourself, and focus on your breath. Sometimes that's all you have to do.
That was deep, Callie. There's no difference between 2 minutes and 2 hours in infinity. Like, wow.
I know. And when you start thinking about that stuff, it takes a lot of the pressure off, because there's so many people who make it seem like, there's all these spiritual practices that you have to do. And it's like, that is so not true. It's whatever resonates for you.
Yep.
What gets you there?
Exactly.
Yeah, make it work for you. You don't work for it.
Yep.
It's not about being perfect. And I think that's even for everyone, for listeners and all of us. Even if we reach a point that's just a moment in time, a point where we are on that vibrational level of up, or we are in that meditative state of kumbaya, like that is a moment in time, and things can always fluctuate, as they should. As Callie mentioned, you have to feel the low to get the high. You have to feel the sadness to feel the happiness. So we'll always be in a state of fluctuation. It's just embracing that we will always be in that state of fluctuation and letting go of expectations.
I was waiting for you to break into song for some reason.
I know. I'm a goofball. Well, I appreciate you both coming on so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and I hope we can convince you to come back on later in the season, because I think that the energy and awareness and messages that you bring, not just into my world, but I think to listeners, it's very much needed right now. So thank you so much for coming on to this show and being vulnerable to speak these things. As we know, the stuff that we talk about isn't always socially, status quo norm or acceptable. So thank you for coming on and being willing to be vulnerable and discuss these topics.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to do that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I always enjoy talking about these subjects because the reality is when I go about my day, I usually don't have people that I can talk to at a very deep level, my coworkers and things like that. We just, these aren't topics that I can usually discuss with a lot of people. So I appreciate this opportunity.
Always fun, always a blast. Like Ashley said, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you both so much. All right, John, bring us home.
Bringing us home. But I'm already home. Just kidding.
Ha ha ha.
Ha 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 ha. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I'm Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And thank you again to Luana and Callie. You guys are absolutely amazing. I love you both. Seriously. And to anybody out there listening, if you have any suggestions for our episodes, comments, or anything else, please email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, we ask that if you haven't done so already, please follow us, like us on all of our socials. You don't want to miss a crazy moment with us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.